Hello and welcome. I'm Annarose White and we're here at Beehive Quilt Shop. So we have some exciting things that are happening. This is, at the time we're recording this video, it is in September of 2024, and we are getting ready for the Power of Color lecture. Kay Fawcett and Brandon Malby are coming here from over in Europe, and they're flying over to the US for their 2024 tour, and we are very excited that we're the grand finale shop of their tour this year. And so the lecture is The Power of Color, which I think is very awesome. In fact, my mom is the producer of our video here. Can you get that one book that we love so much, the Brain on Art book? Yes. So anyway, we wanted to put together a quick little video to explain the class, the workshop, and what we're doing. So we are hosting a lecture, which is basically way better than a concert. But on Sunday, October 20th in Wellington, Kansas, we have the Power of Color lecture. The lecture will be held at the Wellington High School Auditorium, which is in right on the edge of Wellington. Wellington is just located south of Wichita, Kansas, about 30 minutes, and we're north of Oklahoma, about 30 minutes, right on the Kansas Turnpike on I-35. You can probably hear my mom walking. We are in a historic old building that is our quilt shop. But anyway, we are hosting them for a lecture, so we are delighted to have them. This came about really from a serendipitous thing. They said we love to travel the U.S., and even though we know we're in Kansas, we're like, we should say that we want Kay to come because we love them. We've always had an enormous amount of Kay Fawcett fabric ever since we've been a quilt shop. We've just continued to love it more and gain a bigger collection. And so when they gave us the phone call early on this year and they said, you've been chosen to be on the Kay tour, do you accept? We said absolutely. They said, we actually have already picked your slot. You're going to be the last stop. So we have self-proclaimed we are the grand finale. Their last stop after they leave our place is the International Quilt Market down in Houston, Texas. And so that's where they're headed after they finish up here in Wellington. So they are coming in for a lecture on Sunday the 20th of October in 2024. The lecture is at 2 o'clock. We're going to have the doors open at noon to the venue. We'll have a pop-up store there. We'll have a few other things. We'll have just some exciting inspirational quilts. But then the doors to the lecture hall will open up 30 minutes prior to the event. So at 1:30, that's when you'll be able to take your place in the auditorium. There isn't a specified seat, so if you have purchased a ticket, you don't have a seat location, so we'll be there's plenty of room though. So our high school auditorium has room for over 700 seats, and we know we will have plenty of seat options and good ones. We want to sit close to the stage because we want to see Kay Fawcett and Brandon Malby in person as close as possible. So very excited about that presentation. We are also very excited that we get to host them for 2 days of workshops. At the time of this video, they have already been sold out. But I want to explain these two quilt projects because even if you don't get a workshop slot and you're not lucky enough to be one of those people that will take a class from Kay and Brandon this year, maybe in the future you'll be able to take one of these classes. Maybe you'll fly somewhere else around the country, or maybe you'll do one of these projects on your own. So I wanted to explain in this video where you can find the information about these two quilts, what you need to do to make them, and if you're coming to the workshop, what tools and supplies Kay and Brandon really want you to have on hand for this event. So number one, although the lecture is called The Power of Color, the book is also a book tour, is what the U.S. tour is. And so the book is Kay Fawcett's Quilts on an English Farm. And so it just came out in August of 2024. It's a delightful book. It has an enormous amount of fabulous projects in it. And one of these patterns in the book is one of the workshops. So on Monday, the 21st of October, is when the Country Snowballs class is going to be, and Country Snowballs looks a little bit like this, and so Mom's moving the whole camera instead of zooming in, which is just fine, but this is Country Snowballs. So this is what the quilt looks like. It uses a variety of fabrics. They're primarily half-yard cuts, and then the main fabric that is snowballed, hence Country Snowballs, that fabric you're going to want 2 yards of. It says 1 7/8, but we all know that means 2 yards of it. And then of course, I'm sure the binding is about 1 yard. So this this colorway is right here. I don't know if they describe, this is a collection of Golden Harvest colors, which I love because this is, of course, Kate and Brandon. They live over in England, and so they spell colors K, or oh my gosh, they don't spell it with a K. They spell it COLOURS, colors. But the lecture is spelled the English American way of color, COLOR. Both ways are great, but just in case you start Googling things. But anyway, this in this thing, it has turquoise, it has these goldens, but it is called the Golden Harvest colors. Now, one of my favorite things about Cafe is that everything has so many different interesting names. I know when we first got some of his pink and red fabrics, they were called the Vineyard colorway. So I always love how the interesting way that Cafe and Brandon, and Philip Jacobs is another one of their designers, I love how they name their colors. So anyway, Country Snowballs, that workshop, we're going to talk about it first, then we'll talk about Seed Packet. But Country Snowballs, the pattern for that is located in this book, Quilts on an English Farm. It's on page 122. If you are coming to our lecture and you bought a ticket, your ticket includes this book, and Kate and Brandon will be signing those copies at the lecture, so you'll definitely want to come. So this is right here. So Quilts on an English Farm, page 122 is the thing. But the key is, if you're making this quilt and you're going to attend the workshop, it's a little bit different. So we will have some complete kits for this project in a variety of different colors available at our pop-up shop and ahead of time in advance. However, if you're taking the workshop, one of the things is you don't bring a sewing machine. And instead of doing a traditional quilting pattern, you cut one fabric at a time. So when you show up to a CAFE workshop, you don't want to have any fabric cut ahead of time, and you don't bring your sewing machine, because it's all on like the science and selection and the art of choosing colors. So you actually are going to start with this class with one fabric, and then based off of that fabric and kind of your idea of what you would like that quilt to grow into be, Kate and Brandon are going to coach you and help you shop and select colors to do that. So if you're arriving, whether you're flying or driving, you are more than welcome to bring whatever fabrics you would like. We have been told that sometimes at these events you show up with an entire suitcase. You do not need to. In an ideal way, you would show up with like anywhere from like 1 to 6 half-yard cuts of something, and you would kind of have an idea of what color you want to go. But based off of what you learn in this Power of Color lecture, and based off of the instruction from Kate and Brandon, you want to show up to class with an open mind. So if you choose to go another direction, that you are open to that color and inspiration and guidance from Kate and Brandon through this process. So you want to, again, show up with 1 to 6 different fabrics. When you make this quilt, as well as the seed packet quilt, the recommendation is that you will have anywhere from like 14 to 20 half-yard cuts. And that is based off of a variety of selection. So if you come to class with 20 half-yard cuts, awesome. But be prepared that you're going to go a different direction, or Kate and Brandon will encourage you to go with a few other different, we have a little fly that has attracted itself here. So maybe Mom will save me from the fly. Anyway. The moral of the story is country snowballs, and it's on page 122 of, Mom, I'm going to need help with this fly. I really will. It's attacking our YouTube video. We are in Kansas, and it's the end of summer. It is a tired fly. But anyway, Quilts on an English Farm, country sampler, or the Country Snowball. And you want to have, eventually you'll do that. So when you come and you take this class at our workshop or event, we will also have a pop-up store on site at our venue. Mom is too funny. She's like fanning of the thing over there. It's hilarious. So it's so nice to have wind. But anyway, we're having our workshop is located at the Hive Retreat House Center, which is 704 North Washington. It is 5 blocks north of our quilt shop in downtown Wellington. So you can Google that, 704 North Washington. That is the venue. Most all of our, in our classroom space, everyone is going to have, if you are taking the workshop, you are going to have your own design wall flannel fabric there, and you'll be taking it home. So this is Kay Fawcett and Brandon Melby's design flannel, and it's wonderful. It's flannel. Their fabric sticks marvelously to it. A lot of people will get yardage of this and they'll piece it together and mount it on their own design wall at home, and they'll be able to use that for a variety of different, you know, sizes of quilt design walls. Again, at the class, you'll have your own package that's provided for you when you buy the workshop. And again, you'll be rolling this up and taking it home with you. So whether you drive, you fly, I don't think anyone's walking to the venue, but you'll be able to take that with you in your project. But we will have a pop-up store on site at the workshop so that you'll be able to buy additional fabrics. And just behind me is only a portion of the K Fawcett fabric we have in our collection. So we're going to have a wide variety of colors depending on what you're doing. We'll be in contact with you so you can kind of let us know a direction, but we are doing different special requests and stuff like that. But anyway, so moral of the story on the Country Snowball is that you'll have design wall flannel is provided from your class. It is going to be there with your name on it at the place setting. We have a kitchen that's set up there. We'll let you know more food options ahead of time, but just know that you want to show up with at least three to six half-yard cuts, but you'll plan to purchase, the more the merrier, but you'll plan to purchase anywhere from 14 to 20 half-yard cuts in total to do that quilt. So you're welcome to bring, you know, if you have 40 half-yard cuts at home, bring that. But fat quarters are too small to do a lot of significant fussy cutting, and that's why with this project they really recommend having the half-yard piece. You could of course bring a whole yard chunk if you have, but that, just as you know at home, a whole yard chunk is more to manage. So even if you have 3 yards of something at home, I would harvest off a half yard of that fabric to bring with you for the workshop so that you can spend time doing that. Depending on how you prep your fabrics, I would have your fabrics prepped but not cut before class. So if you like to use starch, you want to do that ahead of time. You don't want to show up with a bunch of wrinkly stash fabric. So go through that when you're going through your stash and look through your fabrics. Get them ironed, start collating them. I told a couple different ladies, they were thinking, they're like, I don't know if I want to do pink and purples or if I want to do yellows and oranges. You can come prepared with, you know, especially if you're flying in, you want to come prepared with several different options. So you just want to have those pre-sorted for you. So you're like, if I go this direction, I want to have this. If I want to go this direction, because there's no sewing done in class, you'll be able to, of course, have more flexibility when you go home, but you'll be armed with all that inspirational and color selection and coaching that Kate and Brandon are going to give you. So design wall flannel provided in class, but other things other than the fabric that you are required or very heavily you must have is you're going to come with your, we'll have cutting mats there, but we'll only have a few of those. So you really want to bring your own size cutting mat to the retreat house if you're taking this workshop. You want to have, and this goes for both the seed packet and Country Snowballs, and which, before I go into this, two of the only big differences between Country Snowballs and seed packet is that seed packet is primarily only florals and it doesn't have a background fabric, so it's only florals. Whereas the Country Snowball has florals and it has some geometric shapes in it. So Brandon Melby is the one who designs the more geometric shapes. So the background fabric that they have in the book that's shown on the poster with that golden harvest, it actually has an Aboriginal dot, is that piece which I have buried in a stack. I'm sure there's something behind me. We're just gonna pop down here. Aboriginal dot is this. This is the Aboriginal dot. I don't know if you can see that texture, but this is the background fabric that's used on the poster. Not this color, but this Aboriginal dot. I'm sure you could use one of the polka dots, which are called cave spots. Those would also probably work as a background. And again, I don't know what coaching Brandon and Kate are going to do, but we will have an enormous amount of selection for that ahead of time. So we'll have that on site. Some of the geometric pieces are more like, I have one that's called fish lips. There's some other fun things, but anyway, the only difference is seed packet has no background fabric and is all floral, hence the seed packet. Country Snowballs is florals and geometric prints. Those are the two big differences, and everything is half yard cuts because both projects are fussy cut. But when you come to the workshop, the tools that you'll want to show up with are a cutting mat. This one that's, we have here is the Creative Grid side. This is, I often refer to this as the fat quarter size cutting mat, but this does travel well. I actually take this when I go on trunk shows, so this fits in a nice structured suitcase just fine. But this is 18 by 24, so you can put a half-yard piece on here and do fussy cutting. It works out great. It also fits in this is totally optional, but this is called a Toteology. This is $37, and this fits this size of mat just perfectly. So I would recommend that as an option. But we have that in teal and purple. The Creative Grids mat also works really well. I already have one of those over here. Yes. So anyway, that works really well. But other things that are going to be required is you want to have a rotary cutter that is sharp with a new blade in it. Our coach for this event basically told us, she's like, even though there are all these people that take these classes, there are an enormous amount of people that will still show up to one of these, I would fancy, but designer taught class with a dull rotary cutter. You've already invested so much in this class. You want to show up with a sharpened pencil, not really a sharpened pencil, but you want to have a sharp rotary cutter. Our favorite happens to be Quilter Select. This rotary cutter works great for left-handed or right-handed people. And it's very easy to change this blade. There's no springs. It has a great weight to it, so you don't have to put excess pressure when you're using it. But this, of course, fits inside of that project. We also really appreciate Martelli blades. That's our favorite brand. This happens to be a 5-pack of rotary blades for a 45mm rotary cutter. And so this works great on the Quilter Select rotary cutter, just so you know. So we will have these in stock here at the store. We'll have them in our pop-up store and at the lecture. But we want to make sure that you know that showing up with a fresh blade is just ultra important for this class, because primarily what you're doing is fussy cutting, fabric, and color selection. So that is the #1 important tool to have. The other thing that's kind of vague on the instructions, and it's kind of vague on purpose. So there's different examples of seed packet quilts and Country Snowball quilts. And because Kafe and Brandon don't want you to show up ahead of time with a bunch of fabric pre-cut, you only want to have raw yardage. You want some flexibility. So it calls, I think in the instructions it says that you want like a square ruler is how vague it is. But that's because they don't want you to try to outsmart them and cut a whole bunch of stuff ahead of time. So I would recommend showing up to the workshop with a variety of square rulers. So this one happens to be an 8.5 by 8.5 Creative Grids. I like these rulers because it has both the whole numbers and the half numbers. And some of these are available in left-handed and right-handed options. So an 8.5 would be a good one to get, because I know there's no way that you're going to cut a bigger piece than 8.5. So I wouldn't bring a ruler that's larger than 8.5 inches because I just don't see them being used. A 6.5 by 6.5 inch ruler would be a great choice because it's still significantly less than an 8 by 8. 8.5 by 8.5 inch ruler, but it's easy to handle. And whether you're cutting a smaller piece for the smaller seed packets or a larger piece, the 6.5 inch ruler has a lot of flexibility. Of course, you can bring whatever brand of ruler that you have or want, but you want to make sure that your rulers are in great shape. Oftentimes, if you've used a ruler a lot, sometimes they can get chipped on the side, and different things like that. But again, you're showing up to a designer taught class. You want to show up with your best tools that you have so that your tools don't lessen what you get done in class. So an 8.5 and a 6.5, that's my recommendations of what to bring for small rulers. Of course, you could also bring a 5.5, a 4.5, a 3.5, a 2.5, just if you want to be ultra prepared. But again, an 8.5 and smaller is the type of square ruler I would recommend getting. I know from my history when I do fussy cut quilts, I enjoy having the perfect size ruler to cut what I need to because then it works really well. Another option that would be totally optional, but is you're going to have a cutting mat. So again, you can bring a fat quarter size cutting mat, but we also really love, Martelli has 2 different size circle cutting mats. They have one that's this big. I think it's called a 17, the Martelli spinning cutting mats. So there's a large circle that would be great to use. You can fussy cut as big as a 10-inch quilt block on there, and they have a smaller size. Oh, look, you see I'm getting some more fan. But they also have a smaller size cutting mat from Martelli that's round and spinny, and it has great spinability for fussy cutting when you go to cut, and it travels really well. So that's another thing to consider bringing. And then the only other kind of big recommendation slash requirement from K Fawcett is these reducing lenses. So this is something that regardless if you're taking the Country Snowballs class or you're taking a seed packet class, you want to have this reduction lens. There's a nice, beautiful, soft purple bag that you can put your it's not a magnifying glass, it's a reduction. So it's the opposite of magnifying. But this is definitely going to be a helpful tool. She just said that you must have this. So if you don't have it, or if you're just coming to the lecture, but you won't be able to take one of these classes, we will have these for sale in our pop-up store, but we'll have enough of these reserved for our students taking both workshops that if you don't have this ahead of time, that it'll be taken care of. We will have some order ahead availability too if you're flying in and you really want something. That's something to think about. So going back to this, is that basically right, Mom? You need the cutting mat, you need the rotary cutter with a new blade, possibly extra blades just in case. You want to have your fabric. You want to have at least 6 half yards that are cut to any one of those classes.
20, right?
You can have 20, you can have 40, and you can have several different directions, but the more you can think about what color are you thinking, or what is your most inspirational fabric, what is something that you want to build your quilt around. That is definitely, the more you have pre-thought about that, but yet keep an open mind, the better it will be. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, just for fun, I'm going to move this bag here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how do you go about selecting your fabrics. So I got, just for fun, I'm thinking about the Country Snowball class. But this is one of my favorite prints from Brandon Malby. This is the octopus, and it's really fun. I think it is just called Octopus. This is the turquoise color, but this would be a really fun fabric to put in the Country Snowballs. It'd be fun to fussy cut, but this is a cool print because it has multiple different options. And even though it's 2 colors of turquoise, there's lavender, there's magenta, there's kind of a rusty orange. So who knows what Brandon will tell you to do with this, but my goodness, would this be really cool to make an octopus Country Snowball quilt. Another fun one to put in the Country Snowballs that's a geometric print is Milleflore. And this one is just beautiful. This is a Cave Classic. It's been in the stash for a number of years. This happens to be a brand new bolt. This is the color Lilac. And so this, of course, you can see how this would swim in the same world. And then again, more geometric prints is going to be in Country Sampler or Country Snowball along with florals. This is Jumble, which is a great print. I love this. It is also in the color of Duck Egg. So Jumble is Duck Egg is the color here. And then I, again, have no idea what direction Kate and Brandon will send you in. However, when you're doing Country Snowball, that quilt, you want a contrasting snowball to snowball around the squares. And again, you're not going to sew this in class. At home you would sew it, but you're going to be cutting out some smaller squares to snowball your different pieces with. So this is an example of a colorway or an inspiration bundle. We have several inspirational bundles for Seed Packet, and Seed Packet can of course cross over to Country Snowball, but they're kind of independent from it. So you are going to use 2 yards of background fabric, at least in your Country Snowball quilt. You can of course always buy what I call insurance fabric just to make sure you've got some more, but that's just kind of an example of a colorway. We are going to do some more inspirational bundles that we're going to put together for people who aren't interested in what I'm going to call as a complete kit or a starter bundle. So a starter bundle is simply going to be something that's going to have enough for you to get started, but you are going to need to finish shopping to gather enough pieces to make the whole quilt on your own. And a complete kit is going to be something, in our minds, a complete kit is everything you need for the front. So a complete kit isn't going to necessarily involve binding or backing material. At both the workshops and the pop-up store at our lecture, we will have pre-cut 3-yard cuts of K Fawcett fabric backing. That's just really standard, and it's great because most of the time you are going to make a queen quilt, maybe even a king, perhaps a full, but that way 3 yards is just a great way to buy that. And so that's something, but again, we'll be putting starter bundles, which are going to have the 2-yard background fabric cut and a variety of half-yard pieces to go with it. And that's going to be something that can launch you into making Country Snowball quilt. If you're doing Seed Packet, that one we have, just because it's September and just because the number of people that have wanted it, I just happen to be making a lot of seed packet quilts because starter bundles, because they can work for both directions, and you can make it at home. A lot of people are making this quilt multiple times, so that's the other thing I've told people. If you're really cautious or you don't want to commit to what color that you're going to do, you can always make 2 different seed packet quilts. So don't go into it thinking this is the only seed packet quilt you'll ever make, or country sampler. You might make multiples. So when I make one, and I love going through our selection of fabrics and making custom kits. So another thing that happens a lot of times is somebody will come into our store, or they'll call or they'll email, and they'll say, and we are always busy, but we always want to help you, that they'll say like, I love this fabric, can you help me build a kit around this? And I love that challenge. A lot of people that work here love that challenge as well. So this happens to be Asian circles, and it was a beautiful piece. So this, again, has lots of different colors. Kate and Brandon will help us go in whatever direction we need to. But if you want a starter bundle based off of a certain fabric, you just need to know one fabric that you want to start with, and then we can build your kit from there. So this is an example of one piece that you could either add something like this, which is another jumble print. This is lemon. You could turn this into Country Snowballs, or you could turn it into a seed packet. But again, with seed packet, you want to stick with the florals. So those are just a little bit about how I go about choosing a starter bundle versus a complete kit. If you're looking to do the seed packet quilt and you're unable to join us for the workshop, the exciting thing is seed packet is done in multiple ways. So if you notice when you read the description for the workshop for seed packet, it does say workshop version of seed packet. Now what that means is the pattern or the size you may see pre-cut for squares and other patterns may not be the workshop size that you're going to cut in class. And I don't know what that is, which is why you're going to show up with uncut raw fabric ready to fussy cut for class. However, if you can't join us for the workshop and you're looking to make this pattern, Kay Fawcett's Bold Blooms book, this is a hardcover book. This one's been out for a couple years, and it's written by Liza Pryor-Lucy and Kay Fawcett, and then it's photographed by this wonderful lady named Debbie Patterson. She probably doesn't get nearly enough credit in the world for all of her photography, but on page 68 of that book, it does give you information on the seed packet, the quilt. And so this is, again, just one version of it. If you look up seed packet quilts from Kafe, there's a number of different options and different color stories. So this one isn't like his typical books here where you get pages of cutting information. This one is going to have the concept photographed beautifully, and it kind of gives you that rainbow color palette. So it's not all one color that's saturated. And so we have some starter bundles and complete kits that are an idea of what to do with seed packet, but by all means, we want you to add more of your own fabric into it. And so this is an example of a complete kit. This one is the purple seed packet quilt. And so this one has all kinds of purples. It's got blues and greens in it, but it does have some of the pieces that have a pop of orange or something else, a little bit of black, a little bit of pink. So this is a complete kit because it does have 20 half-yard cuts. So you could buy this fabric kit, go home, and this has a variety of small or medium and large florals to cut up and make that quilt. But another example of a complete kit, this is one of our rainbow versions that we made up with. We have an extensive Kafe collection here. So this has 20 half-yard cuts of seed packet for seed packet, and it's got everything from brassica and the cactus flower. It has the blue Dorothy, but it also has the orange enchanted, the green, it has the big peony. So this one is going to give you everything from purple to reds, orange, pink. It'll give you all those different colors of florals. So this is really also just a stash builder of Kafe. It doesn't have to be for seed packet, and this would be a great way, possibly if you were doing the Country Snowball one, to go. But if you don't want a whole complete kit, you just want a little bit more to add to your fabric or just something to start with, because maybe you don't have a lot of the big florals, maybe you only have a couple pieces. This is another rainbow set, but this is more of a starter pack. So this has 14 half-yard cuts, and it is also, I think this one is just called, if you type in, we have a whole section of seed packet quilts on our website. So if you go to beehivequiltshop.com, just type in seed packet and these options will come up. But this one has 14 options, and again, it's rainbow, so it has everything from, this even has some white pieces to it, but it has green, reds, pinks, oranges, all kinds of different colors of flowers. So it's meant to be a big variety. We do, however, also have one that's called Gray Daydream. And so this is the last one I'll show you on our video today as far as a starter bundle. But this one is called Gray Daydream because I was really inspired by Kaffe. Everybody's got a Kaffe story, whether it's like one of the first times you like had an aha moment with this fabric. Maybe it was someone where you saw someone's quilt at a show and you just kind of got it. And you're like, this is so powerful. I love how beautiful this is. But I was listening to a podcast, and there's a podcast called Quilter on Fire. She's a great lady from Canada, and she interviewed Kay Fawcett, Brandon Malby, Philip Jacobs, and Liza Lucy. She's their pattern writer, and so much more. But Kaffe is asked in there, what is his favorite color if he could only work with one other color the rest of his life? I don't want to ruin the story because it's an important thing. You need to watch that or listen to that podcast ahead of time. It is a recommendation from me. Maybe he'll tell us in his lecture that story as well. But I have been inspired to look at Kaffe's grays in a different way after hearing him describe the color gray in this podcast. So this is, again, a starter bundle. This only has 10 half-yard cuts, and it's grays, but it's they're grays, they're pastels. They can be described so many different ways. A little bit of lavender. But this is a beautiful little bundle. But this is not to make the whole quilt of seed packet. This is just enough to get started. So that's just kind of an option. But just know you've got time. Our event is about 30 days away, which is very exciting for that lecture. Plenty of time to hop on and buy lecture tickets as long as you're watching this in 2024 and it's still September or October. But our event is Sunday, October 20th. That is when we're hosting our lecture. This is so cool that it's the grand finale, but really we feel that this is launching Beehive Quilt Shop into our own next era of how we look at color and design. And we're so excited to be inspired and have open brains to learn about all this stuff. And so we hope you are able to join us. If you're not able to join us, just know that we are always going to have Kay Fawcett fabric. We will always help you come up with custom kits. We love helping you shop in person, but we also know that not everybody lives in Wellington, Kansas and can get here. So we're happy to help you in whatever way we can. We will continue to make starter bundles, complete kits for both of these projects before and during and after our event. So even if you are watching this, maybe even in 2030, because this is going to be on YouTube, but if you're watching this in the future, hello, 2024 was really interesting. But we are going to continue to have a lot of fun with that. So this is just some of our stash that's behind us. But if you are also looking for some more inspiration in your life, I have 2 videos or 2 books I would really encourage you to read. One is called Your Brain on Art. And so I was so excited when they announced that the theme is called The Power of Color, because I know us in a quilt shop and myself in my own life, I love certain colors and there's certain days where I love other colors more. But this book explains the science behind how your brain reacts to color, music, but most importantly, it also talks about why we as humans need to make things with our hands and what it does for our brains. And I know quilters, no matter what age you are, everybody wants to have a healthy brain, and everybody is always just looking for just enlightenment in general. And so I'm so excited to hear Kaffe's perspective on that, because he has built a lifetime legacy of color, design, pattern, inspiration, and he's helped so many quilters and just people around the world, because they do more than fabric and quilting. And so I'm so excited to have them hosted as international artists in our community. But I'm always looking to read something new and help out. So Your Brain on Art is it has nothing to do with the Power of Color lecture, other than this is Beehive Quilt Shop's personal recommendation on the power of color, and what you can do before and after you attend this workshop is reading this book. It's an amazing book. We sell it here in the store, but we also are huge fans of the public library system. So you can find this in most states on your public library app. It's available as an audiobook or a book. But wonderful job. If you happen to be the authors and you're watching, you have just helped change so many lives from this. And another book to look at is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. So those are 2 of our recommendations. But again, we are just so excited to host you in Wellington, Kansas. If we've missed some of this information, we will add some more descriptions in the links. You can always go to beehivequiltshop.com. We ship internationally, domestically, and we are just, we're always looking for fun things. So we hope you'll join us. We hope you'll make a seed packet quilt, country Snowball, and we'll see you sometime soon. And thanks for supporting us, and we encourage you for the power of color. So have a wonderful whatever day it is.